The International Blind Cafe 18 Plus presents Conversations from Booth 6.
This episode is brought to you by Dots 1, 2.
Order up.
Is this the one for Booth 6?
Yep.
Welcome to the International Blind Cafe. We're here at Booth 6. And today is the second anniversary, that's right, 2 years of a community support initiative that started out as a humble Facebook group where blind people could meet and have coffee, find some people to chat with, and it's grown from there. From just a few members chatting at all hours of the day to over 1,700 members now. And now it's expanded to places like the Discord server for the International Blind Cafe and other social media outlets like YouTube, X, and so many others. And it is different things for different folks. If you ask the members at the International Blind Cafe, each one has a different story about how they got here and why they stay. But some of the highlights are great activities with friends. They play games and they share their stories. But most importantly, there's this building of camaraderie between each person who joins the cafe and each person who stays in the cafe. So without further ado, we are lucky to have with us the creator, the guy who started the whole thing, Mr. Jason Reynolds, here at the booth. And Jason, maybe you could just tell us a little bit about why and how you started your little Facebook group over 2 years ago.
Well, 2 years ago, I was scrolling through a Facebook after I had recently gone blind, because I've only been blind a couple of years. And I'd recently gone blind, and I'm trying to go through Facebook, and any of the text-to-speech stuff wasn't really working for me, because it always would mess it up and say things that differently than I was trying to say them. So I was looking for real-time conversations with real people that could identify with the visual impairments and being blind and that whole thing, and also to get advice and just that support. So I created, it was originally called the Blind Coffee Group in May of 2022, kind of close to the end of the pandemic. So, and it's come a long way since then. I had gone blind at about 45 years old after not having any future of being blind, like no prognosis of going blind ever. I was completely healthy. I lived a completely sighted life. I was a long-haul truck driver, and within 30 days I went blind. So it was a quick trip and a journey where I had to step off and figure out something. And with the pandemic on and the supports and everything being closed, I turned to social media and was reading posts and found lots of very supportive text groups, but they didn't quite do it for me. So I created the International Blind Cafe. And since there's been changes in social media over the last couple of years, we ended up on Discord. And from there, it's just blossomed into a wonderful adventure. So with me today, I've also got some other fellas from the cafe. So do you want to tell us about your journey, Terrence, in blindness?
Yeah, absolutely. No problem. Well, hello, everybody. My name is Terrence Reed. And I have been blind since birth, right? Growing up as a blind child was fun for me. I drove my family crazy because the balancing act with a kid in general, I'm not sure what they thought, me being a toddler, and then, coming up through those stages. But, they say the terrible twos. I was just rough all the way around because they couldn't hide anything from me. So, when you can't see cartoons, the only thing you have is the house. Then the house becomes your imagination. So, I, grew up and I was raised by my grandmother, My grandmother prepared me for life the best she could. And I attended public school. I did not attend a school for the blind. Of course, I have resource services. You're classified as special ed so that you can gain access to certain technology, right, that you need as necessities. But as far as all of my courses were, it was regular ed. And yeah, I got through public school, high school, did some college. I am a professional musician, and that in itself is very interesting. Especially since I play piano and keyboard, so I don't have an instrument that can easily be thrown in an Uber. But yeah, that's just a little bit about me, though.
Yeah. So what do you get out of being part of a blind cafe? Like, why do you stick around?
Oh man. So another gentleman on the panel today is who introduced me to the Blind Cafe. And he said, man, I met this bunch of people you got to meet. Right? He's like, they crazy, funny, very interesting. And so for me to meet a mixed group of blind professionals, right? You have people who have lost their sight later on in life, who you just get different perspectives on life. It really is an international group. My first time in here, you meet people from different parts of the country, including Canada. But Canada's not that exotic because where I live, I could throw on some shoes and a backpack and walk right over to Canada. We used to go over to Canada often, right? Before it happened. Things change, right? But when you sit on the phone and you talk to somebody from South Africa, or the guy that you're chopping it up with is from England and he's 7 hours ahead of you, and you're saying good night but really good morning, or the lady you're talking to is all the way in Australia and they're 13 hours ahead of you. It's amazing. It's truly an international experience. And so I have lots of fun talking to all these wonderful people from different parts of the world and learning how they live and do stuff and cohabitate right in their environment and the adaptations that they make to just pretty much make their day go. That's always interesting and fun.
That's cool. You bring up that a friend of yours introduced you, and he happens to be here too. So Tremaine, tell us a little bit about your blind journey and what it was like kind of growing up with Terrence and how much trouble you guys got into.
What's up, my people? I'm Tremaine Riley. And like Jason, I lost my sight later on in life, but I was still kind of young. I lost my sight at the age of 12 due to the syndrome called Stevens-Johnson, where it's basically attached to mucous membranes, and my corneas got scratched to the point where I couldn't see no more. So, as a 12-year-old growing up in the city, I had to learn to adapt. It wasn't until I got to high school where I met Terrence when I was like 15 years old. And the funny thing about it is when I first met Terrence, we were enemies. And that was like 1997, so we've been friends for like 27 years now going on it. And when I met Terrence, he was an inspiration to me because I had never, even like from the age of 12 to 15, I had never interacted with any other blind person or visually impaired person. And when I met Terrence, he was talking about cooking food, and I'm like, if he can cook food, I can cook food. So I started cooking food, and later, and got comfortable with being blind and getting, know people, because, Terrence was just a great inspiration to me, And we got into a lot of shenanigans in high school. Like, him and I wouldn't say we ran high school, but we had a lot of respect in the high school. He was like the bodyguard, and I was the trash talker, I would talk anybody down, argue with anybody at that point. And it made me feel more empowered just knowing other visually impaired people. So when I found this group, it was from another friend of ours. She sent me the invite, and I had an issue getting in, but long and whole, I reached out to Jason, and he talked me through getting in. And from there, I just like Ted said, you meet so many amazing people out here, like people from all across the world and different personalities. It's amazing. It's fun, and like just being a part of this group has made a big difference in my life. Like every morning I wake up and feel like I can talk to somebody who understands where I'm coming from, who's been where I've been, and who's, you know what I'm saying, just an overall good person. Even with the bad apples, you still appreciate those, because then you know that there are blind people who are bad out here. Every blind person they create the same, but for the most part, the people in this group is 100% good people to talk to, and just good overall people to be around.
Well, yeah, that's the thing is we can sit around and talk, and we're not explaining our blindness all the time, and we talk about all sorts of things, the cars and cooking and just day-to-day stuff. That brings me to the fourth person on the panel in the booth today. Hey, Eddie, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hello, my name is Ed, or Eddie Osman. I'm out here in the Chicagoland area of the United States. And I don't really remember how I found the Blind Cafe. I think I got an invite from somebody. I tapped on it. All of a sudden, poof, I was here. And just started talking to people. And like the other gentlemen are saying out here, you meet up with a lot of good people. You learn things from other people on how to deal with things. Maybe just I've learned more talking to the people out here on how to do things on my phone than going through organizations that are supposed to train you. And they say we come out here all hours of the day and night. And if you're ever bored, you come out here, come into a room, hang out there for a few minutes, and somebody's bound to pop in. And before you know it, you got a whole room full of people coming in there, and everyone's telling jokes and laughing and talking about personal things about themselves. Some people that are newly blind that need some support. And, just all of us try to back them up and say, you're going to do fine. We're here to help you. And we'll do whatever we can to help. And before I went blind, my vision slowly deteriorated. I have an eye disease called RP, retinitis pigmentosa. I have a brother and sister with it also. And through the years, my vision slowly deteriorated. And I used to be a motocross racer, jumping motorcycles through the air and stuff like that. And then when I had to give that up, that is when I realized I got to do some different directions on things. And here I am now. I'm 54 years old now. I'm a certified massage therapist for 27 years, went to massage school. I'm living a normal life. And thank goodness I got everybody out here, because before this, I was pretty bored. And I met a lot of people out here, and surprisingly, we all became good friends out here, which is, we don't get to see each other face to face or anything like that, but the voices every day is just like talking to one of your friends, that's away at college or something like that, or, living in a different state now, and still communicate and have a good time.
Well, that's the best part, is the relationships that have been forged over the last 2 years. We've met a lot of really interesting people that a lot of insights and a lot of different perspectives on things. And one of the things I've really noticed is there really came to be true is that we're not alone in our journey, and just about anybody here can relate to any individual thing any one of us have done. Like, there's folks in here that have been blind all their lives, and folks that went blind midway through life. There's several people that we visit with that have been blind almost at the exact same time as I have. So that makes it wonderful. But one of the things going blind that I really noticed was that you lose a lot of your independence and stuff, and you kind of, as a guy, you lose a lot of your guyness. Like, you don't get to work out, you don't get to drive the tractor anymore. You're back to using a shovel. You don't get to ride the quads or the dirt bikes anymore. Like we've had to find ways to overcome that. And I still use a chainsaw. No one's going to stop me from doing stuff like that. But it's a matter of how we've overcome some of the barriers that came up as you go blind. Like, even I can't even jump in a car and go pick up a case of pop anymore, because you've got to be surrounded by a good support system, and it changes your relationships and changes your life. But it's a matter of learning how to move forward with that. What do you guys feel about that, Tremaine?
Yeah, I do feel like being blind, you have to overcome some things. Like when you were talking, I was just thinking about how when you're younger, even when you're older, you just can't be out at the mall and be like, oh, that girl, she's fine. Let me go over there and see if I can get her number. It makes it a little bit more difficult to interact with people on a normal level, like as far as you walking up to a person, getting to know them, or seeing a girl in the mall or a person you're interested in, you like, hey, you know what I'm saying? You have to figure out different methods and different ways to approach people in order to even, get their attention. It makes it a little bit more harder. You know what I'm saying? You can't go down to the bar and just kick it unless you with some other people who know or your support. But overall, I think that you adapt and you overcome these things eventually. But it is some things in life you miss out on, or you don't get to, achieve.
It really puts a new meaning in having to take a wingman to the bar with you. That's for sure.
Yeah, it does.
So Eddie, how about you? Learning to kind of redirect yourself after losing a bigger chunk of your vision after riding dirt bikes and stuff like that, motocross.
It does affect things. Once I learned I wasn't doing motorcycles anymore, and being blind and, like you say, not being able to be the driver. Girls like to have a man drive them around. Lose your independence that way. And fixing things around the house, yeah, you can fix things, but sometimes doing the electrical is a little nerve-wracking when you're blind, because you can't see the colors of things. It'll be a very shocking experience.
I was going to say, it can be very shocking.
You get a charge out of it.
Yeah, but I took precaution.
Yeah,
I just shaved all the hair off my head. That way I ain't having to stand up.
Yeah, it affects your manliness, when you got to be the protector sometimes, or do the hardcore stuff like trimming a tree. We can use chainsaws on the ground, but climbing a tree isn't always the easiest thing to do when you're blind. No. And you're chopping down things, so you got to be a little bit more careful with things. And yeah, I can do basics.
Well, here's the thing, though. Like we found ways around that, but I do know that Terrence and Eddie, you're both firearms owners. Being visually impaired and firearms owners. So tell us a little bit about that, Terrence. Like that's quite the journey to even get that far.
So, about 13 years ago, Tremaine and I pretty much have paralleled each other, except I'm not moving to where you live now. And we stayed in this apartment. It was the projects. It is what it is, right? And some weird stuff just started happening. Like, nobody seemed to have an answer for it. So I said, look, I want to at least have a different way of defending myself if need be, right? And even with that, from that standpoint, you understand that being visually impaired, and that was a lot of opposition I ran against. Well, what if you can't see this and what if you can't see that? Well, then it's common sense. You don't pull the trigger on what you cannot identify. Whether you have 20/20 vision or I don't know what the rest of the numbers mean, because it never really mattered to me. It never really applied, right? But whether it's 20/20 or less than that, you don't pull the trigger if you don't know, if you cannot identify. And so even with that, but I was coming in late. I was a guide dog handler. I live my life. I go out and go to work. I have to walk here and walk there. You come in late. And I just made up in my mind that, if I could avoid being victimized, and that's what I do. So I bought a gun. I bought a really big gun because so go big or go home. And for those of you out there who know what it is, I had a Glock 21. It's a massive 45, and I have fat hands, so I got what they always tell you certain things to do and what you look for. So I got what I could get my big paws on in a hurry, and still conceal and keep to myself. And so that's what I carried back then. And I went to the range, and I'll tell you this, it is very interesting. Going to the gun range and you're walking in with a cane, and you walk up to the desk to rent the lane and get your targets, and no one says anything about the cane. You take it how you want, but no one says anything about the cane. You just walk in there and you go, hey, and they ask, do you need eyes and ears? Yeah, I don't like that. And you pay the guy, you tell him what bullets you want, and it was like, it's lane such and such. And then you go out there, and it's just really weird because they don't even assist you to the lane. They just like, hey, lane such and such. And they just pretty much, I think that's the one place in my life, which is, I don't know if it's dangerous or you say dangerous or that's the one place in my life I've not been treated blind and coddled, was at the gun range.
Wow.
They just talk to you like you're just an everyday normal person.
What's your experience with that, Eddie?
Yep, same thing. Everybody's pretty welcoming, but when I first took my concealed carry class, somebody in my class didn't like that I was getting my license. So he turned me into the state, and I had to fight for about 2 months with the state police to get a certification letter, permission letter, saying that my instructor can give me my certification. And if I didn't have that letter, I couldn't get the certification form. So I fought for 2 months with the state police and finally got my certification letter, and I got my concealed carry license. And I've had it for about 8 years now.
8 years for you? Yeah, it's about the same. I'll just piggyback on that. There was one case a little while, this was some years now, that actually made the news. And it said that a blind man shot another guy, and it was a card game, gambling. They had a disagreement. And I'll just like to point out two things. First off, in all the shootings that you hear about, none of them are blind people. And then the second thing is, in that situation, his blindness was irrelevant. Now, that's up for him and his attorneys to fight it. But he said the guy didn't pay him his money. Whatever the case may be, right? He hit the dude. It didn't even matter that he was blind. They just needed pretty much views. So they put blind guy, shoots guy. But it was lit what he wanted. So, I'm not advocating for it, but, you don't hear about blind people running around being reckless. We just want to go home. Do it. Yeah, we just want to go home too.
Yep.
Yeah, that's one thing is when you're out in public, you're always an advocate, because you're always advocating for yourself, but you've got to advocate for the blind people around you too, because if you come across as a bit of a jerk, they're not going to have to help the next person who may need help way more than you do.
Exactly.
Right.
Because in the town I live in, I don't drive, obviously, which is one of the saddest things ever. Is I came from 20 years of driving a truck, and I walk around freely, and I go to all the places I need to go to. The convenience store I know, I've got it memorized. When I go up to the counter with a frozen pizza, though, I say, "This isn't ham and pineapple, is it?" And the girl's like, "No, it's this." I said, "No, you don't. As long as it's not ham and pineapple, the rest of it's a surprise." I just don't need to be surprised. I just don't need to be surprised to the ham and pineapple.
Surprise!
Hey, Jason, ask Tremaine what he did to me at the gun range. Go ahead, ask him. Go ahead.
Tremaine, what did you do to Terrence at the gun range?
Hey, are you talking about when I went to the range and I was pointing the gun like towards you and you was like, "Don't do that"?
the second thing you did at the gun range, because that was the first thing he did. He turned around and asked me a question with a loaded gun.
No.
No.
I also have a firearm too, but unlike Terrence and Eddie, I didn't have to go through the struggle of getting my firearm because Terrence left out a very important part of his story. When he went to get his gun at the time, the city we lived in had a gun board you had to go before.
Yeah.
And the gun board, literally, they held him up for like a week or two, like to decide if he was even eligible to get a gun. But by the time I got my gun, the gun board had been dissolved, and all you had to do was pretty much get you a CPL instructor or teacher. And lucky for me, I knew someone who did it for me without any issues, and he signed my papers, took me to the gun store to buy my gun, and it was a wrap from there. But I don't recall what I did to you at the gun range.
So we go to the range, him and another friend of ours, okay? And we're at the range. I'm going to tell you what you did. And we're at the range. And so I'm changing over defense rounds to range rounds, right? And so my magazines are completely empty. My gun is empty. It is on the little counter in front of me. He's in the lane next door to me. Now, this is our first time at this range, and typically the rules at range is no rapid fire. But apparently, we went to... Yeah, exactly. But at this range, apparently they don't care what you do as long as you don't do it to them. So we're sitting here, and I hear him let his target all the way out. And I'm going to describe to y'all how he was standing for everybody. He's standing sideways with his gun pointed across his body like he's in an old gangster movie. And then all of a sudden, just out of nowhere, he just unloads the entire magazine. All 13 rounds just downrange. And I'm sitting there going, because I've never sat through anything like that, and I'm going, oh God, they got us. I don't know who they is, but they got us. I ain't had no bullets. I couldn't shoot back, and it's like, where do you go? And I looked over, I was like, what did you do that for? And he's like, I always wanted to do that ever since, what was that movie, Lethal Weapon?
Yeah.
And he let the target all the way out. And by the way, at that range, he didn't hit nothing. I said, if they had roaches, you killed them. They should pay you for exterminating. Because that's not
Yeah, my biggest history with guns is I was in the military for 5 years. Yeah, when we're on the range, the rules are a little bit stricter. But I got to fire weapons that were rapid fire or automatic. So I understand.
Man, he scared me. I went wee a little bit. I'll be honest. I know. I'm being honest. That was sobering. That was very sober. Oh, the stuff do, man. The stuff you get into with your friends, man. The stuff you get into with your friends.
Absolutely. Terrence, you do some cooking on the side. Tremaine alluded to, and I know Tremaine does some cooking. Eddie, you cook.
Yeah.
I cook, and we all cook independently. It's not like we have to have people come in and cook, and none of us cook only using the microwave. So that's a big thing out there. We all live independently, and we'll kind of get into that in a future episode too, where we'll talk about some more of that.
I have to wait on people to come cook for me. I wouldn't be overwhelmed.
So the nature of this podcast over the next 10 episodes will be kind of the guy's perspective on blindness and how we move through our blind journeys. And there's, so we'll hear more stories from these guys, and we'll hear their perspective on things as we move forward, like how demasculating it kind of was going blind, and how we moved with it, and the differences between how men and women see things, for lack of a better term, or pun intended, or whatever, see things as blind. And just, it's not that you can't get things, you can't do things as a blind person sometimes for your significant other, but as long as you get it done for them, they're happy. So you just got to know the right person to call to get it done sometimes, if it's out of your purview as a blind person. So that's very important.
Not what you know, but who you know.
That's
Tell
right.
me about it. I was listening. We can't drive a car, but they know our names when it's time to unclog a toilet, isn't it? Fix
Yep.
Or in my case, putting up a light fixture.
it. You be like, I don't even know if it's on. Is it on?
Right. Put the light bulb in and see if it's warm. See if it's warm. There you know it's
So you
hot.
can't out with these new ones. They don't get hot.
Yeah, they don't get hot. I forgot.
No, all these LED ones, yeah.
Oh man, listen. You know how I found out we had this house is protected by AT&T security? I ran the decoy over with the lawnmower, and that is also how I found the service repair store in my neighborhood for lawnmowers. So, listen, man. You just take them. You know, and being blind, man, you just have to learn how to laugh.
If you'd like to join us, there's always a seat for you in Booth 6 at the International Blind Cafe, Discord server, and Facebook group.
Sweet.